I'll call to order the June 13th meeting of the Santa Barbara City Finance Committee. Do we have any comment from members of the public on any items that are not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll go straight to the item that's on our agenda, which is the sale of the exclusive right to repurchase 420 East De La Guerra Street, the Presidio Park Apartments. Mr. Rao?
Good afternoon, Chairman Hart and Finance Committee members. I'm David Rowell, the Housing Project Planner. The city holds the exclusive right to repurchase or an option on a 50-unit, low-income, affordable housing project located at 420 East De La Guerra Street, known as Presidio Park Apartments. Presidio Park LP, the owner, submitted a fair offer of $12,029,200 to purchase the option from the city. Their offer includes maintaining the project's long-term affordability for an additional 60 years. Presidio Park Apartments was developed as part of the 1974 Urban Renewal Plan under the Presidio Springs Redevelopment Project. The redevelopment agency contributed to the development of Presidio Park Apartments by selling the land at that site for $177,800 and assisting with HUD low-income site approval. The project construction financing was with a 40-year HUD-insured loan in the amount of $1,662,000. For the RDA's contribution, they were provided an exclusive right to repurchase the project for $831,300, or 50% of the HUD-insured loan, to be executed within 90 days of the loan maturity date. The project was completed in 1979. The current owner is Presidio Park LP, a California limited partnership created by Goldridge and Kess. G&K is a real estate investment partnership founded in 1957 with a portfolio of multifamily, retail, commercial, office, and assisted living properties, which includes 7,500 affordable rental units. City staff continued to track the option, and in 2012, with the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, the Housing Successor Agency no longer receives an estimated $4 million of tax increment funding per year. In addition, the city's entitlement award of federal home funds was significantly reduced from over $800,000 a year to just over $300,000 a year. Given this significant reduction in affordable housing funding, the affordable housing staff took on a self-funding strategy. That strategy included strict enforcement of loan agreements with residual receipt repayment provisions, as well as refinancing loans that were due and payable that had remaining balances. We would extend the loan, require a guaranteed payment, and extend the affordability of the project. As part of this self-financing strategy, staff looked to determine the value of the exclusive right to repurchase. Needless to say, we held numerous internal meetings and discussions, and the staff's due diligence included reviewing historical documentation, the project's title, the physical condition of the property, the project's financial statements, including rent information, and the project's Section 8 Housing Assistance Program contract, also known as a HAP contract. Then the staff was given approval to order an appraisal and to start discussions with the owner. The owner also ordered an appraisal, and the two appraisals came in at a valuation range of $11.5 to $14.5 million. We had some discussions with the owner, and they made an initial offer, and with further discussions, here is the terms of the offer. The owner is offering to purchase our option for $12,029,200. As I mentioned earlier, to exercise the option, it would cost the city $831,300, so the owner's being credited that amount. The city would carry back a loan of $11,197,900. The city interest rate on the loan would be 4%, and the term would be for 60 years, which represents an amortized payment of $40,986.55 per month. We also created an alternative payment plan based on the level of HUD subsidies that I'll discuss in a minute. The city loan is secured by a first deed of trust, and there's no subordination required because the city loan is in first title priority position, and the owner will be paying off a loan in escrow that has an estimated balance of $3 million. And the affordability of the project will be extended an additional 60 years. So let's talk about this alternative repayment provision. Presidio Park Apartments' estimated annual rental income is $1 million. $600,000 comes from what's known as HUD project-based Section 8 subsidies, the other $400,000 coming from tenant rent payments. Given the current state of the federal budget and the reduction of funding to HUD, there is concern regarding the level of subsidies. So if the HUD project-based Section 8 rental assistance program is altered such that the annual rental income is changed during a fiscal year, payments under the city loan can be adjusted. And the way that process would work is the owner would submit an audited financial set along with their HAP contract to verify there had been any type of reduction. And this alternative repayment provision is only good for one project year and would revert back to the original payments unless the owner was to submit a second set of audited financials for the following year. So let's look at a little bit of how this works. This is the alternative repayment provision table. As you may recall, the annual rent income was $1 million. And so, for example, if the subsidies were reduced such that the annual rental income dropped to $800,000 a year, the monthly payment would decrease to $37,323. If the subsidies were removed altogether and the annual rental income dropped below $500,000, the monthly payment would drop to $10,000 a month. Now, this scenario is highly unlikely, and there is evidence for that. The federal budget that was released this year had reductions in home funding and CDBG funding, but there was absolutely no reduction in this project-based Section 8 program. What we're trying to do here is create a monthly payment that is at a level where it doesn't create an undue hardship of the project. They're able to continue to afford the operating expenses, some reserves, and if there happens to be some capital expenses like they need a new roof or something like that. But once again, the alternative repayment provision is only good for that 1 year, and it would revert back to the $40,986.55 unless the owner were to submit another round of financials and show that the subsidy level had dropped such that it has to drop all the way down to below $900,000 on annual rent in order to have any change in payment whatsoever. Any interest or principal remaining at the end of 60 years is due and payable. Included in this offer is an extended affordability of an additional 60 years to low-income tenants with an 80% area median income or less. Once again, this is a HUD project-based Section 8 project. There's a total of 50 units, 49 of which are low-income tenants and one manager's unit, with 34 one-bedroom units, 14 two-bedroom units, and 2 three-bedroom units. Now, why would the city accept this offer from the owner? First of all, it's a fair offer without requiring any cash outlay by the city. It's a market-based offer based on 2 appraisals. It eliminates the uncertainty of future property valuation and cost of any capital improvements in the next 2 years in particular before the option window opens. In addition, this is an extremely well-maintained property. However, it is 38 years old, so that there could be some future capital improvements needed. The affordability would be extended an additional 60 years to low-income residences, and this transaction would be seamless to the existing low-income tenants because the property owner would remain the same and the property manager would remain the same. We're simply removing an option from the title. Accepting this offer is consistent with the city's housing element priorities to promote affordable units, preserve affordable housing, and specifically to Presidio Park Apartments, housing element 21.4, which is to extend the affordability of Presidio Park Apartments. This funding is extremely important to the affordable housing program because it provides long-term income stream which will begin 2 years before the maturity date of the option. And that's, with 2 years of payment, that's a $1 million head start. These funds can be used for low-income housing tax credits, which is a very competitive application process. The more public contribution to those tax credit applications, the higher the score and the probability goes up of being rewarded tax credits to build the project. These funds can be used for rehabilitation of existing affordable projects and to support the administration of the affordable housing program. So the recommendation is that the Finance Committee recommend the Council approve the sale of the exclusive right to repurchase the property located at 420 East De La Guerra Street to Presidio Park LP for the amount of $12,029,200. Approve a loan to Presidio Park LP in the amount of $11,197,900. Approve an affordability control covenant imposed on real property, and authorize the community development director to execute such agreements and related documents as necessary. This concludes my presentation. Rob Fredericks from the Housing Authority would like to come up and make a brief statement, and when he's done, I'd like to open it up to questions at that time. I'd also like to point out we have Mark Walton in the front row here representing the owner, G&K, if you'd like to ask him any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowell, for the excellent report. Mr. Fredericks?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Rob Fredericks with the Housing Authority, City of Santa Barbara. This is a property that is directly adjacent to our offices off of Laguna Street and De La Guerra there. And it was developed at the same time that our agency developed Presidio Springs and Presidio Gardens, the senior and family developments. So this is a development that we've been tracking ever since it was developed by Goldridge Kest, and it's an important affordable housing asset to the community, and one that we did not want to have lost once the initial affordability covenant expired. So my commission, along with staff, have reviewed this plan by Goldridge Kest in the city, and we feel it's a fair deal for the city and for Goldridge Kest, and it preserves the affordability. As Mr. Rowell stated, they're extending the affordability covenant for another 60 years. So that's very important that we have that covenant extended for that 60-year time period. And to us, when the redevelopment agency went away throughout the state, it really affected our community's ability to continue to produce the needed affordable housing. Having these the loan funds come into the city through the loan repayments will really help bring up to not the full level of the formal redevelopment agency, but will certainly help in assisting developers such as the Housing Authority, People's Self-Help Housing Corporation, Community Housing Corporation to develop new affordable housing through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and others with this additional funding source that comes back into the city that has to be used to support affordable housing, those loan repayments. So my commission is supportive of of staff's recommendation to the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Mr. Fredericks? Councilmember Dominguez?
So I'm curious, how would this fit, for example, if the Housing Authority were to acquire a property like this or to be part of the property management team in terms of the economy of scale of your portfolio versus a separate entity?
Well, This property would have worked fine in our portfolio. It fits. It's within our operations and within our sphere of influence. So it would have been a good fit. However, we don't need to build, as long as there's affordability covenants built in, we don't need to be the only operator of affordable housing in the community. Goldridge Kess has proven themselves to have done an admirable job over the 40-year time span of both developing and managing and operating the program. They, under the HUD contract, they are required to work with our agency in filling vacancies, pulling people off our wait list to offer vacancies at the development. So they work closely, their on-site managers with us to fulfill those vacancies. So while, yes, it would be fine for the property to be within our portfolio, it's perfectly fine for another private developer, as long as they're a good developer and operator of affordable housing, to be a player in the community as well.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember White?
I appreciate following up that a little more. What kind of cash flow would the housing authority get out of it? The comparison I would think would be is what would we do to hang on if we hung on to the property and ran it, and then what's the business side of it? Obviously the wild card in here is the whole Section 8 business and whether it's going to hold long term, and also the affordability covenant aspect. I would imagine that the housing authority would have, if you just were to take the option, you would have the ability to be more flexible on the affordability, since there would not be a covenant on it. You'd of course want to keep everything at as low a level as you could, but if you needed to bump it up, you could. So was that spreadsheet done, or you have anything on that front?
Member White, that's an excellent question. We actually reviewed the pros and cons, if you will, of this transaction versus holding it. And there's so much uncertainty in the next couple of years in terms of things such as property valuation, in terms of capital improvements that may be needed. In addition, by executing the option today, as I mentioned earlier, we start receiving payments 2 years earlier. And that puts us ahead of the game about $1 million. And if we were to take on ownership of this project and hire a property manager, it is true that there's a potential for a little bit extra cash flow, maybe $50,000 a year, but it would, given the fact that we have $1 million head start, if you will, it would take 20 years to catch up to that financial break even. And property ownership, multifamily affordable ownership for ourselves would be something new. We could have purchased the property, multifamily affordable ownership by the city. We could have assigned it over to the housing authority.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what I was more thinking than,
But
than the city.
What we've got here is a market offer, and we're executing it 2 years early. We're requiring low-income tenants, and most of the tenants are way below low income. The HAP contract dictates the subsidy levels, and you're right in that the HAP contract is one of the uncertainties moving forward, which by locking in our sales price now with a potential for a flexible payment plan, we've locked out a lot of the uncertainty that we might have experienced in the next couple of years.
And I can imagine that is there a benefit by going to the private sector, by having a private owner? Is there a tax benefit there that's what the kicker is, that's allowing more cash to come the city's way? Is that the extra benefit that the private? I mean, I'm thinking, for example, of the methane project the energy project down next to the sewage treatment plant, where the private sector came in and they get tax deductions out of the process. That's what makes the project more feasible. Is that what's going on here, where there are extra tax benefits from the heading toward the prospective private owner?
I'm not sure of the exact benefits to the private owner. For us, we don't take depreciation like a private organization would on a deal, but we also don't pay property taxes either on any of our properties. So
Or income tax, right?
right.
The current owner has got a portfolio, as I mentioned earlier, and they actually manage and operate 7,500 affordable units. So they're in the business, although being a private owner, they're in the business of affordable housing up and down the state of California.
I hear that. I was just, again, thinking, you're saying there's $40,000 a year difference between the mortgage, being a mortgage holder, rather than being an owner and manager. And that's obviously a very small amount of money. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councilmember Dominguez?
One more question, Mr. Fredericks, if you're able. Does your agency have a ballpark number they use in terms of an operations and maintenance budget for an asset like this?
We do. We look at our complete portfolio of what it costs for similar sized properties. I don't have it off the top of my head, and I wouldn't want to give you wrong
Would
information.
10% be in the right range?
No.
20?
30.
Yeah,
30?
30. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Is there anyone else that'd like to speak to this matter? You're just here for questions? Okay. Anybody else that'd like to speak to this? All right, well, it's back to the committee.
Seems like a reasonable proposal, and I'd move the staff recommendation.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstain? The matter carries unanimously. Thank you all for coming today, and we are adjourned.